Hello, and thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Marcus Cage, and this is what I've been thinking with Marcus Cage. In this video, I want to talk about South Carolina just a little bit. Uh, South Carolina and then Super Tuesday hit so quickly, so I didn't have a time to really drop a video and go into some things. I did see, and like everybody, they kind of predicted Joe Biden to win South Carolina, but let's talk about that and a couple of the aftermath, which led on into Super Tuesday. Thank you for joining me and hope you enjoy the video. All right, and thank you for joining me. South Carolina. Now, there was a couple of interesting things which I heard about South Carolina. Of course, we knew that that was a state which Biden looked like he was going to be very strong in from pretty much since he entered the race. Everybody's talked about it being his firewall. So it wasn't a lot of surprise there that he did well. It was a little bit surprising that he did as well as he did. I thought some of the other candidates might have some inroads there. I didn't have any illusions that Bernie Sanders was going to do great there because he suffered so badly to Hillary Clinton in 2016. So I didn't expect that. What I was looking for is where did he improve around the margins? Now, if you listen to cable news, they're going to tell you that there were no improvements. There was nothing going on, nothing to see there. But there was there's actually more candidates that were in the race, taking up more votes. And also they were all much stronger candidates. Last time around at that point, it was only Hillary, Bernie, and I believe Martin O'Malley. It might have been one other person in there, but I think Lincoln Chafee, I think. But these were not nearly the names or they didn't have near the name ID that say a Kamala Harris or a Cory Booker or a Julian Castro. I mean, these different politicians have built themselves a platform on their own, much higher than some of those other politicians which I named before, who are a little bit more seasoned, and so therefore, name ID is one of your biggest things that's going to be important. Some things I did not factor in South Carolina. I guess how informed people are. And I don't mean informed as in specifically talking about the issues. I mean, just even informed that there's an election going on. I was listening to some of the canvassers on the ground who were talking about that they were meeting people a week before the race was going on and didn't even know that there was a primary in their state. And they said that a lot of that had to do with the deep poverty that goes through that state, and a lot of people in the rural areas not having access to internet or actually just having satellite to be able to get a lot of just regular standard cable news. A lot of the people are kind of only time they watch the news, from what I hear, there is normally to watch out for storms and things like that. A lot of people are very disengaged, just trying to get by, making it. Well, the thing which shook all that up, that started this whole tidal wave of different things, was the James Clyburn endorsement. And I remember being on, not being on, but sometimes when I'm watching fellow YouTubers, sometimes I like to comment on their feeds and threads. And I won't say who I was watching, but it was a younger podcaster, and he wasn't familiar with James Clyburn at all. He was like, well, I guess this Clyburn guy endorsed Biden, whatever that means. And he was very dismissive of it. And I myself was, I remember writing on his on his thread to say, no, James Clyburn is a really, really big deal in South Carolina. Though there are plenty of issues which I have with James Clyburn, it's perception is the reality. Even though that he's taking more money than most of the people in the House, I mean, he's probably one of the most crooked, hands out begging politician that you have out there to lobbyists and special interests. And for this man to have been in power, I want to say easily 30 years, he's been in office, and he's kind of, no, I'll just say it. He's kind of rode on a lot of his civil rights pedigree, that a lot of the activism work which he did in his young days, and he's just kind of rode on. And if you look at the quality of life in South Carolina under his decades, things have not gotten better. And I mean, I can make that same case with a lot of different politicians. One in particular, who not South Carolina, but San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi's been there 30 years. And the income inequality is atrocious. It's like, I get it, there's city leaders and mayors and all that, but you're a congressperson. You have some responsibility or some tie. You can come back into your district, kind of, lay your weight on somebody in a sense to kind of get things to start going in the right direction. But James Clyburn, he's one of those politicians where he's known throughout the state of South Carolina and North Carolina. And of course, that whole Virginia area. So that nice little cluster right there. And then a little bit of bleed over into Georgia also. So his name does carry a lot of weight, especially in the older Black community. A lot of them down in that area, maybe he might have taken a whole lot of money and done a lot of things, which I feel cloud his judgment and lead to him taking shortcuts or inroad, or let's say outroads around helping people and kind of giving them the bare minimum. Well, to somebody who doesn't have anything or not getting very much, that bare minimum, it might seem like he's done something major for him. And that's my feeling of a lot of the people who have a lot of this positive feeling for James Clyburn, except for, the elites. That's another thing. South Carolina, though a lot of those people who voted for not Clyburn, but for Biden are not elites, or most of them are not extremely wealthy people. A lot of them are blue collar, hardworking people of all different stripes. The difference that comes in is the electorate there is extremely loyal to the Democratic Party, especially to the Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and Obama wing of the party. And by having that tie, and James Clyburn having that tie with the Clintons also, it was just very easy for people to say, oh, okay, well, you're with Clyburn, we trust Clyburn, so okay, then they must be all right. And once you have an ally, well, I don't like to even call this guy ally, because I feel anytime you are taking your responsibility for granted and you're using that for personal enrichment, and by default, you might do a couple of good things here and there. I mean, you still are just taking advantage of your people. So I feel like a lot of those people, because they have this sense of loyalty, I feel Bernie Sanders is coming from a tough and difficult place. When I lived in the South, what I noticed is, if they feel like you're not one of them or not a part of the South, it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how many ideas you have. It doesn't matter what you want to do to help them. They're not going to listen to you, because they're automatically going to be so weary of trusting anybody that's not in their circle or bubble. So all of those things played into part into South Carolina. some of the later polls actually showed that 47% of the population actually made their vote in South Carolina on James Clyburn's endorsement alone. Without being a conspiracy theorist, I'm just going to report the facts that I saw from the South Carolina elections officials. They actually released several publications and letting us know that there were hundreds. I think the number was somewhere around 700. I think it was about 700 actual poll closings throughout the entire state. Actually, no, I'm getting the states backwards because there was 2 states that had a massive amount of poll closing. One was Texas, which we will talk about that in my Super Tuesday video coming up. And the other one was South Carolina. So South Carolina, I think it had roughly over 1,000 polling stations. There's I'm trying to remember which. I think it might have been the Washington Post or New York Times, either one that did actually cover a story on it. So if you don't want to just take my word and you want to look it up, just go ahead and type in easy Google search and it will pop up. You'll be able to find that information. Let's see. With that said, that momentum that he was able to capitalize on, and the big wall which Bernie Sanders was having to try to fight through, why it all didn't materialize, I guess. I feel like those were my thoughts on it. And I felt like the bright sides for Bernie Sanders is the fact that still with youth voters across the board, all races, he's still somewhere around 55% on the low end, to some of the polls being somewhere around 70% to under 40 voters. The issue he's going to need to start having higher turnout, and we're going to have to figure out a way to get more youth voters actually to the polls and try to find a way to make some kind of dent or inroad into the older different demographics, whether it's Generation X, baby boomers, or even some silent generation who are still, still active and still getting out there to vote and still, very sharp upstairs. So we just have to try to do whichever way we can advocate. We got to also remember, we got to tailor these messages to different people because different people respond to different things. Somebody hit me with a revelation, I guess something I was listening to earlier. And they said, a problem Bernie supporters and followers, especially people on the left, have is we try to use facts too much. And I was like, what is that? How does that even make sense? He said, what you got to understand is a lot of times when you're having a discussion or you're trying to win a debate, it's not always about the facts necessarily. Sometimes emotion can cloud over facts. So while we're giving people fact, it can come across as being snobby. It can come across as being a little condescending. And so, I just ask for some of you guys to keep that in mind, myself included, when we try to have some of these conversations, so people don't misunderstand us or take us the wrong way. We really are passionate because a lot of us are kind of the first wave of feeling everything that's negative that goes through the economy. And a lot of other people, after it's ran through us and we're just like completely out and done and we can't handle it anymore, then it starts to creep up to, some of the people in suburban areas and some of the older demographics. And then they're like, it's a problem. Then we need to do something. But, us younger people or us people who might have different issues which put us in that unique class category, whether it may be you might have a decent career and you might have taken care of your money, and one illness can come up and that puts you, right there in that boat. You could have done everything that you could have tried to do everything right. You could have go through a nasty divorce and end up in debt. I mean, there's a gazillion different ways that any of us could have went from living a comfortable, I guess, comfortable, orderly, and successful life. And we all can hit those bumps in the road. And some of us Bernie supporters, whether we're at our peak or at our valley, or whether we're just going up and down trying to figure this roller coaster life out, the biggest thing is we feel akin to those of us around us, whether we're still in those circumstances. There's times when I've been doing not very great or doing a little bit better, but it's important for, even when I'm doing a little better, when I have a little bit more money in my pocket or able to do things that I don't take for granted, and I still remember that anything can go wrong and I can be in the same shoes all over again with some of those other people that are suffering. So when we're trying to fight for these political things and Bernie says, not me, us, we need to really, really keep that in mind too, because it's the same thing. We have to fight for those people as if they're us, because it could be us at any moment. With that said, I guess I'll leave this video here, and I'll be back soon with my Super Tuesday wrap up of the mess that I had. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you on the next one around. Thank you.